Right, just get that. Cool. How are you doing, Shaun?
Hello, mate. Very good, sir. Very
Good.
good. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I loved Mangrove. Really loved it. I was just saying to Catherine before this started, I grew up around the corner from Mangrove. I grew up in Westbourne Park. So it was great seeing, and I used to hang out when I was about 14, 15 with one of Frank Crichlows daughters. So it's a story that all felt very close to me.
Oh, right. Not
yeah.
Lenora.
No, Mandela, actually. Yeah.
Right,
yeah, but she wouldn't remember me now, but it was a long time ago. Friend of a friend. But I'm going to start. I mean, obviously, there's many things I'm sure that would have attracted you to this project, but probably none more so than Steve McQueen. I mean, that man he's like a magician with the camera. What was it like to collaborate so closely with him on this project?
Well, a lot of firsts happened for me specifically in this. Black British director. London story, real story, as in it actually happened, in real life and all of that. So there's something else that's attached to that as an energy, So lots of firsts, and then to be able to get on set and realize that the preparation on set is set up for people to fly, The preparation and attention to detail is set up so that if you want to, you can use that energy to serve, and that's what most of us try to do. Everybody cared. He cares. He's a great director, and a lot of the time with people on set, you don't really know what they're doing until you see the thing. But yeah, it's been fantastic to work with him because obviously that brings an audience. It brings an interest. It's so layered, this process with great things that what can I say? How does it feel? I feel honored.
Yeah, because one thing that can't go unnoticed is that if Steve McQueen is making 5 movies about the kind of the Windrush sort of generation and the sort of West Indian communities in London, that's providing 5 whole sets worth of opportunities for Black actors in this country, which is a fantastic thing that he's doing, isn't it?
And then there's that as well, I mean, as I say, you can come from like 4, 5, 6 different angles and say, God, that's amazing, isn't it? And you'd be right. It is, a lot of firsts, as I say. And with the backdrop of 2020 as well, it kind of puts that magnifying glass on it and, a little bit more. So, yeah, it's been an amazing journey, to be honest with you, because from the moment I finished filming last year, to this week, it's been pretty amazing. Lots of things about it.
You mentioned it's obviously a real story. I just wondered if, because obviously, Frank was a sort of pillar of the community up until about 2010, and so many people in the area knew him. And obviously, of course, he's left behind his daughters, and one of which is an actress. I just wondered if you, to help craft the character and to get into his head, if you spoke to many people that knew Frank, and if you spoke to his daughters and his family members to help understand who he was, to help sort of embody him properly on screen.
No. I wasn't really able to talk to anyone for those specific reasons. No. I actually had about 3 to 4 weeks or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it was about, well, yeah, I'm sure you will, to prepare. And in that time, I had to get an accent and prepare mentally, if you like, for the path ahead. So what that means is that most of my time is spent preparing on those levels. Fortunately, I've got a friend of mine, Makemba, who helped me with the lines. We went through literally every single line. We talked about the psychology of the West Indies, of Trinidad, of why it's different to Jamaica and maybe some of the other islands in the West Indies, and because that needed to come across, that really needed to come across. And so, although it would have been interesting to, and very helpful and very useful to have people around to talk to about him, essentially, what I ended up doing was all the time that I had.
And because I've read, obviously, I was reading lots of reviews of it as well, because I loved it so much, the film, when I saw it back I say at the London Film Festival. It was at home, sadly, but as part of the London Film Festival. I was reading reviews, and a lot of people keep using the word relevant because obviously the film this year, particularly with what happened, has been going on in America and kind of like police brutality and stuff. But in some ways, this film has felt this is relevant all the time, isn't it? I mean, this year might have been shining a light on what's been going on and the kind of relationship, particularly well in America and the UK, between law enforcement and the Black communities, but this film, to call it relevant, almost seems like we're disregarding the fact that actually this has been going on constantly, hasn't it, for decades? What's depicted in this movie?
I love that you've said that, because I completely agree with you. People have asked me my thoughts on all of those things, and I've said, look, this thing is relevant as a story before, during, and after 2020. There are so many things about this story. It's about a community who stand together. Wow, a community of people who are actually standing together for something positive. Well, there's something there. Let's discuss that. Then they happen to be a Black community standing together for something positive, which is a West Indian restaurant that this guy's trying to run. That's all he wants to do, you know. So this Black community coming together with one voice, that's something. Let's discuss that. Then obviously there's the political thing as well. There's the idea of prejudice. There's the idea of abuse, because I say what the police did to him was a form of abuse. So there's the idea of what can one do in that scenario. And what did these people do? Well, they decided that they weren't gonna roll over. They were going to stand up, fight for themselves, fight for each other, and by hook or by crook, they were going to fight for justice. So that in itself is amazing. Without the backdrop of 2020, it's just that the backdrop of 2020 shines a bigger magnifying glass on it,
Yeah, speaking of the kind of the more antagonistic roles in it, I mean, Sam is obviously playing the lead villain in this, and I interviewed him the other day, and we got chatting about kind of when he's on set, if he almost had to not distance himself deliberately because of the nature of the characters and how it was obviously a community versus this kind of nefarious presence in some ways. I just wondered about the kind of dynamic on set. If you almost, and not just on this particularly, but when you're in movies or TV shows where there is someone who plays a villain in something, do you almost have to keep a bit of a distance as an actor to kind of help inform the kind of performances, or is that just a romantic idea of the way cinema works from my point?
There are some shows where you're best of friends in real life or something, and you can have a chat and everything's fine, and then as soon as they say action, we're in. But what I liked about that set is that what was promoted was that you remain real, you remain heartfelt throughout the day. And what that means to individuals, it will be different. We're not robots. But what it meant for me was that I had to keep away, because I didn't want to get into that thing of smiling all the time and laughing all the time. After let's say one of these harrowing scenes, all of a sudden start telling a joke, about whatever, and be laughing and come out of the mood. And then as soon as someone shouts action, have to kind of like regain where we were, before lunchtime or whatever else. It's quite difficult to do. That's quite difficult to maintain that energy. So yeah, we did. We ended up kind of like sticking to our corners slightly. We ended up seeing each other and having a little chat here and there, but respectfully staying away and being silent and giving what we got as soon as someone said action, and I like that.
Yeah. And I was going to ask too, because because my parents still live in Westbourne Park, so I still go, but well, obviously not as much this year as I would have liked to, but I go back sort of regularly because I'm in South London at the moment, and I sort of go back and I'll visit, and every
Whereabouts?
time I'm in just in between Camberwell and Peckham.
Oh right, yeah. I grew up in Forest Hill.
Oh, did you? Oh, cool. I'm not too far from there now. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I was going to say, because every time I go back to see my parents, the skeleton of the Grenfell Tower still looms over that whole neighbourhood in quite a in not just in a tragic way, but in quite a striking and profound way, to see it still standing there. I just wondered about, because this movie is very much about communities coming together, and that whole Grenfell tragedy shook the community and shook the nation. I just wondered how it was shooting this with that, I guess, there behind you or in front of you the whole time. Because I mean, where you shot on location, I believe. So I guess you would have had it looming over the set. I just wondered what that added to this production, if it brought a sort of quite profound sense to proceedings.
Yes. It's funny you say that, because there were a couple of times where Wade, my driver, we'd pass it. Look, there it is. Because I don't live in London right now, you see. I live in the south of England, so my head was a bit fuzzy as to where it actually was, because usually I would know in my head where it was. But again, you know, you don't really want to be on set thinking too much about anything else other than getting these lines out in the way that these lines need to come out, because they're going to be on celluloid forever. Anything that takes away from that it's not useful. So even though these things are around politically, you have to kind of separate that, because when someone says action, if I'm thinking about 8 other things that are nothing to do with that, it's going to be a problem, and you're going to see it as a viewer on screen. You're going to watch it kind of understanding that I'm not there or something as an actor. There's something that's not quite right. So I can't allow that to happen. So even though these things are around and you're thinking about these things, as I say, as soon as the camera starts rolling, you can't really think about these things. It would be wrong to, because the point is you're trying to kind of summon up these spirits of these people who sacrificed, who almost went to jail, you know, for no good reason, who almost kind of, you know, whose story reverberates for 50 years to the point where we're still talking about it today. You know, you're trying to tell that story, and anything that gets in the way of that is not useful.
And I was wondering too, because I mean, I'm sure this wasn't like Steve's kind of primary focus as such, because he's just telling really interesting stories that are steeped in kind of historical facts and stuff. But what this does, just by proxy of showing a community coming together, is really highlight the fantastic kind of input and imprint that different cultures can bring to London, you know, and they're from all different parts of the world. And this restaurant looked like such a fantastic kind of vibrant place to hang out. And it just really shows how communities in London are enriched by different cultures. And even though that might not have been the kind of primary focus, it's a great thing to take away from this project, isn't it? For audience members, particularly now where there's still so many pockets of this nation that have, you know, there's still constant news stories about kind of the refugee crisis and stuff like that, that it's quite an important message to preach, isn't it? The kind of how much different cultures can enrich this nation and different communities in this nation.
Yeah, again, that's a beautiful point you make. I wish I'd have made that point. I mean, you know, it is. You're absolutely right. You know, there are people from all over the world who go all over the world and influence the people of the country, you know, that they go to. It happens daily. It's been happening forever. It's just about what point of view you have. You know, cup half full or cup half empty. Are you looking at that and thinking it's a problem, or are you looking at that with the eyes that say, well, that is actually amazing, because without these people we wouldn't have A, B, C, D, or E, and without those people we wouldn't have this food, and without those people we wouldn't have this fashion, and without those people, you know, we wouldn't have jerk chicken. I don't know, you know, the list goes on, but you're absolutely right. And when we look at people like this, when we look at people and see the good that they bring, the usefulness, you know, as well, I think you start to see the world in a different light. And hopefully these types of shows, again, can throw some kind of focus on that.
Oh, and I was going to say, traditionally, I'm sure this might have been a show where you probably had all your friends and family around on Sunday to watch it, but obviously that's not quite allowed at the moment because of what's been going on. So I wondered if you did have any kind of plans for Sunday night to watch with your family, or any kind of Zoom calls afterwards with friends to discuss it.
Yes, we'll be discussing it afterwards for sure. I'm sure. You know, it's something that my whole family. You know, my sister sent a WhatsApp message to my uncle in Jamaica, and literally he recorded this, which is funny. He just sent back a recording of him going. That was it. That was it. So you know, I look forward to hearing those messages again over the next few days. So no plans to sit and watch it with someone. I'm a person who kind of like if I have to watch something, I'd prefer with me in it. I just prefer to watch it by myself. To be honest with you, it's a bit excruciating for some reason. Still at this time, I can't really watch it objectively. You know, I'm watching it looking at other people to see if they get it or not. You know, why is she frowning right now? You're not supposed to be frowning. You know what I mean? When you're sat watching it with people. So I prefer to, as I say, sit and watch it alone.
Has that not got easier then? You'd think, because you know you've been in this industry a number of years now. Is it still just as hard to watch something you're in now as it was when you first began?
When there's so much focus on it, yeah. Maybe 2, 3, 5 years from now, if it happens to be on and I'm sat down with some friends, yeah, I probably wouldn't feel the same way. Now you ask that question. Now I think about it. Yeah.
Have you seen the parts yet to the Small Axe series? Oh well, I've only seen one other. I saw Lovers Rock, but it is fantastic. So you must be quite looking forward to watching those then, I suppose, just as an audience member.
Exactly. That's going to be great. Being able to just watch those, sit back and watch the whole series, you know, because it quite obviously is a series that I would want to watch, you know, without me knowing anyone in it. As you've already said, it's Steve McQueen, it's the BBC, it's Amazon. You know, people have taken time out, you know, the care and attention to detail. It's like 11 years in the making, essentially. So, you know, it's going to come with some quality.
I just want to talk quickly because obviously when I was younger, I loved human traffic. I still do. And I just wanted to ask you, because it's become over the years a real cult classic, and it's kind of feels like a very defining piece of kind of pop culture, that movie now. I just wondered, when you guys made it, if you got a sense that it might have that sort of impact, or if that's one of those things that's kind of impossible to tell until we have the kind of benefit of time.
I knew. And the reason why I knew is, you know, the reason why I love this role in the Mangrove and the role in human traffic, and then 1 or 2 other things that I've done on TV and film, certainly in theatre, is that it represents the real, you know, is that there's an element of it where people are gonna, from an audience member, I love Goodfellas. I love those gangster movies, you know, we could name them all. I just don't know anyone like that. Like Joe Pesci's character, you know, or Robert De Niro's character, really. So I can only connect with it so much. I love being a part of things where the audience can truly connect, you know. And human traffic has taught me over the 20 years, because it's over 20 years now, right? It's taught me that when people connect, they'll be with you for life. And not as a fan or anything like that, you know, just the idea that a film was made and you can watch it now and say, I recognize everything about that film still to this day, you know. I love being a part of that. And I knew at the time that it was that, because I lived that life. So when you live that life, you can read a film and say, yes, this is that life. For the most part, I mean, you know, it was Welsh, so it wasn't really my life, but that said, you know, I loved it. I loved it down there. I loved filming down there, you know, and I've made quite a few friends down there now. But again, that's what it is. And even I go to America these days. Just this year, you know, I was in a store in America, and this young lady came up to me. Oh my God. And I'm like, okay, here goes. And she says, oh, I love your movie. And I was like, right, okay, I'm not Idris. I'm not Idris. I'm not Idris. And she's like, I said, who do you think I am? I said, who do you think I am? And she said, oh, you're Human Traffic, right? I was like, oh, wow. Oh, you saw that film. She was like, it's one of my favorite films. I thought, and that's this year in LA. So, you know, you're absolutely right. You know, it's kind of stayed there as one of those films that people recognize. And again, honored to have been a part of that as well.
Maybe she was an old-time raver, that woman.
You know, when people come up to you, you can tell in their eyes if they're not.
They've seen some things.
You know, when they watch that film and they tell you they've seen that film, you know within seconds if they're with you or against you. And if they're with you, you know, if they're with you, there's a little nod and a wink, and we're all good. We know exactly what we're talking about, you know, wherever we are. And they're all over the world, those fans. And we always have a bit of a hug when we meet, because we know, you know, it really actually is like that. I'm actually not joking. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
And again, with the Mangrove, my family haven't really been able to watch me in anything that they can have that reaction to, really. And I believe this is going to be the first thing that they're going to watch of my whole career, where my family specifically, you know, my mom and my aunts, my uncles and whatever else, are going to watch and understand. And to be representing them at this time is one of the only things I haven't done in my career. And so I'm so lucky and honored to be able to do that as well, to be honest with you, if you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Shaun. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you. I hope you get a
You
few more
too,
chuckling voice notes as a result of Sunday's showing.
Lovely.
Yeah, and best of luck with the release and stuff. I thought,
Thank you.
I mean, as expected, it's a brilliant, beautiful piece of TV. So, yeah, I loved it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!